Over the last decade, Australia has experienced a period of sustained population growth and increasing cultural and ethnic diversity. Between 2006 and 2016, our total population increased by 3.5 million people. Today, more than a quarter of our population is overseas born. So how is our diverse and changing population impacting Australia's social cohesion, and to what extent has the national mood shifted over the last decade? The 2017 Mapping Social Cohesion survey is the Scanlan Foundation's 10th annual national survey exploring Australians' attitudes on issues including immigration, trust in government and sense of belonging. Together with the 9 earlier national surveys conducted since 2007, the research provides a significant and robust contribution to the systematic monitoring of Australian opinion on social cohesion and population issues. 3 different surveys were conducted for the 2017 report, combining best practice modes of surveying. 2017 findings offer valuable insight into current attitudes, while data collected during the benchmark survey in 2007 provides a unique vantage point from which we can measure change over the last decade. Let's take a look at 4 key findings explored in this year's report. Despite significant demographic change over the last 10 years, the Scanlan Foundation surveys have found consistent majority acceptance of immigration and cultural diversity in Australia. In 2007, 53% of people surveyed thought the number of immigrants accepted into Australia was about right or too low. In 2017, the result is a similar 56%. Agreement with the proposition that multiculturalism has been good for Australia has been consistently in the range of 83 to 86% since this question was first asked in 2013. Questions on a range of other social cohesion indicators have consistently obtained a high level of positive response over the last decade. When asked to what extent do you have a sense of belonging in Australia, 96% of respondents in 2007 and 92% in 2017 indicated to a great or moderate extent. Asked about their level of happiness over the last year, 89% in 2007 and 86% in 2017 indicated that they had been very happy or happy. While there is much evidence of a continuing positive outlook, the 10 years of surveying also provides evidence of changing attitudes in some key areas. When asked to identify the most important problem facing Australia today, the constant element over the last decade has been concern over the economy. But 3 issues have recorded substantial change. Concern for the environment and climate change peaked in 2011 and then declined. Concern about asylum seekers and boat arrivals was mentioned by 12% of respondents in 2012 and 2013, but just 2% in 2017. Concern about terrorism and national security increased from less than 1% in 2014 to 10% the following year, and has remained a top 5 ranked issue since. There is further evidence of change when looking at the Scanlon-Monash Index. Over the course of the 10 surveys, the index has declined from the baseline 100 in 2007 to 88.5 in 2017, with the largest falls occurring in 2010 and 2013. In 2017, the lowest index scores are in the domains of social justice and acceptance/rejection. 19% of people surveyed this year expect that their lives will be worse in 3 or 4 years, compared to 11% in 2007. And the reported experience of discrimination because of skin colour, ethnic origin or religion is 20% today, more than double what it was in 2007. Other questions have found increased negative responses over time. Those indicating trust in the federal government to do the right thing for the Australian people fell from 39% in 2007 to 29% in 2017. In relation to safety, the proportion of respondents worried about becoming a victim of crime in their local area rose from 25% in 2009 to 35% in 2017. On the one hand, 10 years of Scanlan Foundation surveying points to a large measure of stability and the absence of a major shift in mood. But there are some findings that suggest the Australia of 2017 may be less resilient than 10 years earlier, and that we as a nation are now less prepared to deal with economic and other crises that may eventuate in coming years. Dissatisfaction with Australian democracy and the increasing hold of populist politics in Australia are key factors to be considered in the evaluation of future risk. Voting patterns point to the decreasing electoral appeal of major political parties, with support for minor parties and independents in the House of Representatives at 23% in 2016, up from 15% in 2007 and 7% in 1983. The increasing geographical concentration of overseas-born populations, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne, questions whether past patterns of integration are continuing or whether new norms are being established. Subgroup analysis highlights trends in attitudes according to respondents' financial situation, education, age, region of residence, and political alignment. For example, trust in the federal government was lower than average among those struggling to pay bills or poor, and higher among those who described themselves as prosperous or very comfortable. 79% of young people aged 18 to 24 agreed that accepting migrants from many different countries makes Australia stronger, compared to a lower 51% of older Australians aged 75 or over. Among supporters of the Liberal, National and Labor parties, there is recognition of problems with Australian democracy, but radical change does not gain majority endorsement. In contrast, One Nation attracts a heightened level of discontented supporters. 63% of One Nation supporters have no trust in political parties, and 80% agree that Australia's system of government should be replaced or needs major change. More than 35% are very pessimistic about Australia's future, compared to just 6% of Greens voters. On immigration policy, 86% of One Nation supporters consider the intake to be too high, compared to 39% of Liberal voters, 36% of Labor voters, and just 10% of Greens voters. Scanlan Foundation surveys over the last decade provide a reference point to understand patterns and extent of change, and views held within the mainstream and within minorities. In a period of substantial population growth and global uncertainty, findings indicate that social cohesion in Australia has been maintained in large measure over the last 10 years. Still, negative indicators suggest the social cohesion success story of post-war decades cannot be taken for granted. Rather, social cohesion is something that collectively we must continue to foster. We invite you to join the conversation at #SocialCohesionReport.